Welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. Today is Thursday, April 1st, 2021, 10 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Happy April Fool's Day. So I thought I'd reach back into the Dungeon Master's Guide for the special day that it is and look at tricks and traps. I've had a look at these before, and that's okay. We're going to do it again because I think there's some new insights that have come to me with the passage of time as I took a quick glance at them yesterday while I was trying to think of what would be best to do. Tricks and traps, the 1E DMG. Yeah, there you go. I tell you, I think they're on page 216 in the appendices. Welcome, Sarah. April Fools. How about that? Every day is April Fool's Day when you're a fool like me and you think it's April every month. I don't know. We've kind of been trapped in this loop for the last year. Maybe it has been a continuous April. Sort of like Groundhog Day, only with more deaths. That would be the analogy, I guess. That's sad. I'll try not to bring everything down here. Let's look at the traps. Let's have our deaths be in games going forward rather than out of game. So a few of the things I noticed on here when having a look at it most recently, that is to say yesterday, on the traps section, we've got arrows, and these are alphabetical, right? But if you look down in the D's, you don't see darts, and you don't see crossbow bolts in the C's or B's. And I was thinking arrow trap, it's a pretty standard trap, right? The old arrow trap. Spears are also pretty standard, I think, from the point of view of missiles or things that cut you. But you don't see darts and you don't see crossbow bolts. And I think maybe they were just kind of trying to keep it kind of truncated and just put more points, more of the percentages on arrow traps. Trap trick saying, can we please have a thief roll a d20? Yep. Or percentage dice. George. Let's see if you can actually disarm the traps. So, if I was to expand on this list, and maybe I should, I would add darts, I would add crossbow bolts. I would probably use up some of the percentages. There's 6 percentages there for arrow traps, or maybe it needs subtables. I don't know. Do you need to look at extra tables? Maybe you do, so that you can expand it more fully with something along the lines of this many arrow traps. Maybe you can also set them up so they're divvied up, where, left, right, center, above, below, from below. Darts, crossbow bolts, ball trap. Okay, that sounds painful, but I think the point they're trying to make is if there was a room full of marbles, or if a very smooth floor suddenly got covered in marbles from some chutes and just kind of filled the whole floor with marbles, you'd have a tough time walking around on it. And it wouldn't matter if you tried to kick them around. If there are enough of them, they just fill in any area that was cleared just as quickly. Caltrops, we love caltrops. Don't want to play jacks with caltrops, not poisoned ones, that's for sure. Ceiling block falls, ceiling collapses, ceiling lowers. I think we like all of those. What about the ceiling that rises? A ceiling rises and it reveals some alcoves higher up in the wall where there are, I don't know, some creature that could survive being in there like that. Maybe gargoyles or some sort of constructs that then come down into the room or attack. That'd be a nifty one. Chutes are always cool. You could expand that or have a subtable that shoot down 2 levels, shoot down 3 levels, shoot to the left, to the right, off the floor, off the wall. Maybe it opens up off the wall and the floor tips up and funnels you toward it in a funnel shaped room. Door falling, door one way, door resisting, door specific, door spring. That would be nasty. So marbles would also add noise to alert any security. Yeah, anything down the hallway, in the next room, anything nearby might hear a lot of that noise. And of course, people yelling and screaming as they fall on their butts also helps alert security. What about other doors? Let me see. Well, doors springing. Those are all pretty good. Of course, the old mimic, for a door or a chest, anything like that. Maybe we'll stop back and talk about doors more. Floor collapsing. Floor illusionary. Those are both good. A floor that... what about a floor that's painted three-dimensionally so it looks like a chute down, but then when you step on it, it actually opens up into a chute? So that at first you think, oh no, it's fine. No, it's just painted. They're trying to trick us. And as you walk across, it turns into what it appeared in the painting. Gas blinding, gas corroding, gas fear, gas nausea, gas obscuring, gas poison, gas sleep, gas slowing, gas weakness. Somebody had a lot of gas that day when they were running with it, but they ran all out of gas when they got to the jaw trap. So, 2 puns in a row. Very nice. Blinding, corroding, fear, nausea, obscuring, poison, sleep, slowing, weakness. You can have gas that does just about anything. Certainly, you could have one that just simply smells bad, right? Give it the old, the smelt it, dealt it trap. Sometimes, when you're aware of something that is there that is innocuous, bad pretty much all the time, absolutely. But what if one wasn't bad? What if it smelled bad, but it didn't actually do anything? How much time does a group spend trying to figure out what's been done to them when they're aware that something has happened, even if nothing has actually been done to them? That could be a good time. Jaw trap. Well, that's the old bear trap, right? Snaps up, cuts off a leg, or traps someone by the leg or whatever. And you could have jaw traps and all sorts of things. What if the jaw trap is in a Bas Relief free ice cream? You remember everybody knows the meme with the face from the Temple of Elemental Evil, or Tomb of Horrors rather, with the open mouth that if you stick your hand in, I think it's a sphere of annihilation inside, and you're just gone. What if it's made with hinges, and the jaw of the mouth is actually a jaw trap? So if you were to reach inside, suddenly you'd see teeth appear, and then the whole jaw would snap shut down on you and chomp your hand off, or chomp on whatever you stuck in it. Well, okay, let's assume it's a hand, all right? Pendulum, ball or blade. Sure, sweeping back and forth, clobbering. We love the Ewoks using the big logs in the forest. Pit locking. What about a pendulum? Hey, I just thought of this. What about a pendulum that's a net? Or just something that sweeps you toward a pit that is nearby. So this isn't actually the trap so much as a mechanism that pushes you into the trap. That's a fun idea. Pit locking and flooding. So these are the ideas of a closed pit that then opens up but then snaps back shut and locks. Someone's trapped below. Maybe there's another way out. Maybe it's on a lower level. Maybe now the party is split and there's nothing that they can do about it. Well, sir, you assumed wrong. It was not a hint. Okay, Kyle, Funny stuff there, buddy. And pit with spikes is always good. Pit poison spikes, nasty, of course. Pits with fluids in them. Suddenly you're potentially drowning, and there's slick walls, and there's no easy way to climb out. Filled with water, filled with anything liquid could be nasty. Passage blocked by falling bars. Good portcullis drop is just a very simple way to create a situation that splits the party. We had one of these over the weekend in Eli Elder's, one of his fantastic games. Actually, I think it was his Friday game. And we have passage closed by a stone block, is always good. Room elevator, a lot of fun. Room flooding, very good. Doesn't need to be liquid, or it's Kool-Aid and you hit the jackpot. Yeah. Could be flooding with Kool-Aid. What about just flooding with sand? That's always a nasty thing in a desert area. You've got a room filling up with sand. As soon as it gets a certain amount full, you aren't climbing out of it. You're stuck and held fast, and there's not much you can do but resign yourself to the fact that it's going to continue. Now, of course, if it doesn't rise all the way, if it only rises up, say, 4.5 feet, well, smaller members of the group, they're stuck. Maybe you can help dig them out, but maybe you don't die from it. Maybe you're just caught up. Maybe it delays you. Maybe there's some sort of a element of time that's involved in whatever mission or adventure you're on, and now simply the delay is enough to make it to bring on potential failure for the mission. Room sliding. Those are kind of neat. You get into a room, the door shuts, it slides 500 feet in one direction, and if you open the door again, you're on a whole different place. Scything blade. Sure, those are fun. Doesn't need to be a pendulum. It can just be a out of the floor or out of the wall, cutting across a corridor. It can be a really huge blade. You could have them on both sides, so that no matter which side you're on, you're in danger. Spear traps are great, much like arrow traps, though. They're just big arrows, right? Spear trap poison, always good. We could add those into the side table for arrows, darts, crossbow bolts, spears. Put them all in the same. Put them all in the same boat. Maybe even the blades. Maybe even the sword blades. These could be weapon traps, you could call them. Stairs collapsing. Yeah, yeah. There's a good. There's a good one. That one when you're just sliding on down down toward a lower level or someplace. Maybe you're trying to get out and they collapse and they just keep sliding you down into everybody else. Teleporter traps. Those are kind of nasty. I've never been a fan of those. I don't know. I using magic when a mechanical trap would do requires more information, requires a narrower field of potential villains involved because, you know, pretty expensive, access to magic, you've got all sorts of things, and high level magic to boot. I mean, if you could just create a shaft and grease it, a physical trap that takes you to a different place, where teleporter definitely disorients you and you have no idea where you could possibly have gone. But, if a physical trap will do, it can certainly be created by much more mundane skills nonetheless, but much more mundane than who you would need to create a teleporter trap. Vents, acid, fire, gas. Yeah, those are pretty neat. I'd put them in the same category as gas traps, right? I mean, one of them is gas, right? But I think the idea is that it's like like an opening, a fissure it could be, or any sort of thing like that. All sorts of options there, and not just the ones that are on there, but you could combine those with the gas traps and create something of a more elaborate table with a lot more results in it. So maybe we'll do something like that. How are we doing on time? Well, we're right at the halfway mark, so good. We're moving on to tricks now, which is Appendix H. As with traps, there are nearly endless numbers of tricks which can be devised and used in the campaign. Most experienced dungeon masters will probably already have a proud repertoire of clever and innovative, not to mention unique and astounding, artifices, deceptions, conundrums, and sundry tricks which will put to shame the humble offering which follows. Don't sell yourself short, Gary. Most people are building on what you've created here. Nonetheless, this enumeration might serve for those who have not yet had the experience and seasoning necessary to invent more clever devices to bring consternation to overbold and incautious characters. Even if you are fairly conversant with the idea of tricks in the dungeon, check the list anyway, for you might find one or two useful ideas there. The first list is features commonly found in the dungeon. Therefore, it is a longer thereafter is a longer list of attributes. Select a feature or several as desired. Assign one or more attributes to each feature or combination thereof in order to develop an interesting trick which will challenge the players and yet not be too difficult for the level of experience of the characters. When you come to now, for those who never agree with the idea that balance is baked into first edition D&D, right there's a sentence that kind of proves it, right? And be not too difficult for the level of experience of the characters. Balance was always in the back of the head because let's face it, if you wanted to, you could create a world in which characters step out their front door and they're immediately beheaded. There's You could create a world with padding on all the sharp corners where characters never die. It's completely up to the DM, but it is a game. And if you want a game to be challenging, but where players can have some success, if not quite a bit of success, you have to have some balance in it. So, side note, balance baked into AD&D. When you come to an appropriate spot in your dungeon, or elsewhere for that matter, enliven the place with the addition of a few tricky attributes to an otherwise unremarkable and now ordinary feature. All right, so there's your features. Altar art, ceiling, blah 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 blah, wall well. You've got all sorts of stuff in there. Again, we're still on page 216 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Tapestry, fireplace, furnishings. Furnishings covers all sorts of stuff, right? And you can go to another appendice or area in here where uh, they've got other tables that are more expansive on things you might find. Furnishings, for instance, are expanded upon. So, plenty you can do there. Now, attributes. Here's where it gets interesting. And here's where it makes for a trap. George says, when the thief succeeds on a find remove percent roll, does the thief hide the trigger and make it harmless as well as illusion? I'm a little lost on that sentence there. I think that the question is, does a find remove traps make an illusion harmless or make a trap harmless? Potentially. Now, and maybe this is just the way I do it, but I kind of look at a sliding scale. Is that if a thief has a 50% chance, let's say, of find remove traps, if they're close to the number but miss it, I have some doubt in their mind whether or not maybe they did it. And same true if they manage to find the trap but it was close. You're pretty sure there's something there, right? Not 100% sure. They roll a 1. I like to give them total information or as close to it as a character could be aware. And if they roll 100, false bravado time. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know for a fact, even though they got it completely wrong. So too with remove. I like to have it as a sort of a sliding scale. A good solid roll, 25% when you have a 50% chance. Yeah, you're sure you got it. You're pretty sure you got it. I leave just a little hint of potential mistrust, because anybody would have some of that, some disbelief that it worked out. Ah, Prometheus, good morning too. And let's see, how does mechanical versus magic trap work for disarming? That's a good question. It depends largely, in my campaigns, largely on the abilities of the thief involved. If they have no way of dealing with magic themselves, it can depend on the magic as well. There can be ways of disarming traps that are magical. An arrow magically comes out of a crack in the wall. But if you physically cover the crack in the wall, it doesn't matter whether the arrow could magically come out of it or not. If it's covered, it's not coming out. So it's kind of a circumstantial thing. You have to decide how much of a chance they have. Looked like I almost froze up for a second there. Anyway, let's look at some of these attributes before we get too far along here. We're into our last 10 minutes. Ages, animated, anti-magic, appearing, disappearing, asks, like a magic mouth, might ask a question or a riddle, a text. Maybe, and you know what? Maybe there's no ill effect if you don't get the riddle right. But maybe in answering the riddle, you've gotten a clue to something. So it doesn't need to be all or nothing on these. You don't have to die from every trap or every trick. You don't have to be harmed physically from every trap or every trick. Maybe you ask a riddle, you give the answer, and that was a clue to get you to an answer. Maybe the answer is gumbo, and maybe gumbo is actually the answer to a later puzzle trap. Those letters, maybe those letters as an anagram. Maybe those are the letters in the answer to the other trap. So, or to a puzzle later on. So think about combining some of these and think about spacing them out. They don't have to be combined all in the same place. You could. You could have one after another all in the same room before the doors open and let you out, or it stops the water from flowing in, or whatever happens. But think about moving them around inside the complex so you have multiple ways that people can move forward. What do we got? Collapsing and gaseous are on here. Enlarges, reduces, enrages, electrical shock, false, flesh to stone. Greed producing. Intelligent, invisible. Look at these. Wish fulfillment, reversal, teleports. Symbiotic, spinning, sloping, sliding, shoots, shifting. Talks intelligently, normally. Talks nonsense, poetry and rhyme, singing, spellcasting, yells or screams. Suspends animation. Suspends animation. I think that, okay. Suggests rising, sinking, resisting, general or specific. Releases coins, counterfeit, gems, jewelry, magic item, maps. Randomly acts, polymorphing, poison, points towards something. Pivots, two possible ways. One way, moves or rolls. Pivots, two possible ways. Of course, in the DMG First Edition sample dungeon, you remember there is a secret door that if you find it, the more obvious trigger opens the secret door in one direction, but if you were to find the other, it opens in another direction, leading to two different areas. That's one of those fantastic little tricks. Because the second area, the tougher one to find, actually goes to a treasure room. Take some time, too, to read these tricks when you get a chance. I won't go through them all here, time not permitting. But there are some examples. And notice there's a decent amount of text with each one. So these are things that you shouldn't skip on the, if you're trying to if they're complex enough that they require a block of descriptive text, you're better to put a little more than you need than a little less, or try to skimp on it. Because if you create some confusion in the mind of the DM as they're trying to implement these things, it might still work out just fine, but if they're um, if they're from the school that if they don't understand it at first, they're just going to give up. You don't want that. So you want to leave a little explanation, little extra explanation. You've got an altar, you've got an arch in here that are both explained. You've got a container. This is a jar, which is alternately a polymorphed black pudding, which the touch of a character will dispel to its normal form, or an obsidian vase of the finest workmanship, which is worth 5,000 gold pieces. If a polymorph spell is cast upon the jar form, or a dispel magic is cast upon the vase form, then the vase will become a normal item of great worth. Otherwise, each time it is touched, there are equal chances for either form to exist. So, it can go back and forth. And I assume that is to say that the same thing could happen to the black pudding, that the touch of a character will dispel it. Now, is that to say that if the black pudding attacks something, it's touched a character and then goes back into a vase? Maybe. Maybe that's kind of fun that it can keep going back and forth like that. And there, are they going to swing at and try to smash a vase? And if they do, does the touch of a character include a mace? If they hit it with a mace, does it then change it into a black pudding? Could go back and forth. A door secret, pivoting stone portal will always swing open to the left, giving egress to an area guarded by a basilisk. However, if a second hidden stud is found, 1% chance, then it will pivot to the right and allow entry to a chamber containing a magical fountain. There you go. And the magical fountain in and of itself is also a trick, right? Or could be. And here's a fountain here, a monster, a pedestal, all sorts of examples here, and well worth checking them all out. From these examples, you will note that nearly an endless combinations are possible even without your own ideas for additions, and these will surely come. There can be monsters hidden by illusions, illusional monsters, symbiotic monsters, monsters in combined pairs or trios, or whatever. The parts of the dungeon which are distorted, invisible, shifting, slanting, spinning, and so on. For some further explanations or examples of tricks in the campaign, you might wish to consult Dungeons & Dragons Volume 3, Underworld and Wilderness, or Greyhawk Supplement 1. These are things from original Dungeons & Dragons. So, there we are. That kind of takes us through it all, and I will also say thank you, everybody, for dropping in today. If you're here and you haven't already, please do follow the channel. I would appreciate it very much. I will also point out that it is still Thursday. It's April Fool's Day. Watch yourself. You may get trolled online today. Take it in stride if you can, and try to see the humor in some of these things. If that sort of thing bothers you, go read a book. Get offline today. Don't let yourself get sucked in. Don't forget, Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, we are here doing this OK Grognard show, streaming it on Twitch, and then uploading it afterwards to YouTube. If you're catching it on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up for any videos you watch and or enjoy. Feel free to comment in the comment section if you have some constructive criticism or you just want to chime in on the theme of a particular episode. It's all in good fun. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Thank you, everybody, and bye-bye.